A single night spent in the shadowed corridors of the Stanley Hotel, hidden in the mountainous Estes Park, sparked the imagination of one of today's most known horror writers. Stephen King wrote the haunting novel The Shining in this setting, surrounded by splendor and whispering echoes of the past. The hotel's remote location and historic walls, which have witnessed decades of past events, served as the frightening inspiration for the haunting Overlook Hotel, where imagined horrors pale in comparison to whispering reports of genuine ghostly encounters. Beyond its poetic splendor, this hotel has a grim history of spectral tenants, each with a story that blurs the line between the afterlife and our world. What secrets do these halls hold, and what stories are still to be revealed? Let's dive in and peel back the layers of mystery surrounding the Stanley Hotel, discovering stories so unnerving that they call into question the very core of the supernatural. Before Stephen King stepped foot in its corridors, the Stanley Hotel was a shining example of early American imagination and drive. Carved from the rough landscape of Colorado and set against an idyllic open sky, Freeland Stanley, plagued by tuberculosis, traveled to the Rocky Mountains on the suggestion of his doctor, seeking the pure, dry air that Estes Park was famous for. The tremendous improvement in his health prompted a crucial change. From these tranquil settings, Stanley, who was already well known for inventing the Stanley steamer automobile, envisioned a large retreat not only for himself, but also for the expanding number of consumptives seeking solace. By 1909, this idea had become the stately Stanley Hotel, a sparkling white colonial classic structure that stood out among the area's rustic accommodations. With its extensive verandas and magnificent views of the Rocky Mountains, the hotel immediately became a symbol of luxury and a haven for the elite of the early 20th century. Electricity, telephones, and automobiles, all of which were extraordinary in such distant areas, were standard amenities at the Stanley. In Colorado's remote mountains, a new era of modernization emerges. But the Stanley wasn't just a hotel. It was a cultural nexus that influenced the growth of Estes Park. The town, which had existed quietly in the shadows of the mountains, began to develop as a result of Stanley's entrepreneurial energy and unwavering belief in the region's potential. The hotel drew tourists, explorers, and health seekers who were drawn not only to its luxurious offers, but also to the restorative powers of its surroundings, solidifying Estes Park's status as a resort destination. As we delve into its mysterious hallways and stories deeper, we learn that the Stanley Hotel's genuine nature goes beyond the haunting and creepy. Its real impact is woven into the stone and timber that form its walls. What stories do these materials tell, and how do they add to the legacy that is only now being discovered? As the Stanley Hotel's foundations nestled into the environment of Estes Park, its doors opened to a new chapter punctuated by the polite clink of high society. It was a period of luxury, with the splendor of the hotel's design and modern amenities attracting the wealthy and well-off from all over the country. They came not just for the fresh mountain air and spectacular landscapes, but also for the alleged health benefits that this opulent sanctuary provided, particularly to those suffering from tuberculosis at a time when the White Plague swept through American cities. The Stanley Hotel evolved as a place of refuge. Tuberculosis sufferers rushed to Estes Park after hearing of Stanley's extraordinary recoveries, which they attributed to the high altitude and dry air. Seeking similar cures, the hotel gave them not only refuge, but also a level of refinement and comfort that was uncommon in traditional sanatoriums of the time. Lavish ballrooms, exceptional dining, and immaculately maintained grounds provided a welcome respite from the grueling routines connected with tuberculosis treatment. This mix of medical retreat and luxury resort drew a wide range of guests, from European nobles to American tycoons, all seeking equal parts health and relaxation. The Stanley's draw was apparent, with its promise of renewal and social prominence, making it a must-see on the elite's social calendar. However, behind the surface of this luxurious getaway, whispers of the supernatural began to circulate, stories that would eventually become woven into the fabric of the Stanley family's legacy. The Stanley, it appears, was always meant to be more than a hotel. Amidst the splendor and whispered stories of the Stanley Hotel, a new chapter was unintentionally written one crisp October night in 1974. Stephen King, already an increasingly prominent master of horror, found himself a guest in this grand establishment. The hotel, preparing to shut down for the winter season, held a lingering atmosphere of isolation and eerie quietude that night. As King and his wife were the only overnight guests, the setting was ripe for inspiration. King, wandering the empty corridors and vast lounges of the Stanley, felt the weight of its solitude pressed upon him. It was in room 217 that a vivid nightmare seized him, a dream of his young son screaming, terrorized by a fire hose he imagined to be a malevolent creature. Waking in a cold sweat, King stepped out onto a moonlit balcony, and there, observing the hotel's hedge sculptures and the rocky mountains beyond, the bones of the novel came together in his head. Specific elements of the Stanley directly threaded into the fabric of his book. Room 217, where King had slept, maintained its haunting legacy throughout the novel, becoming a focal point for supernatural happenings. The Stanley's stately remote setting became the Overlook Hotel, a place with its own ominous history, where the past was as palpable as the frost in the Colorado air. The lengthy, deserted hallways and the majestic, but dismal ballroom were all reflected in King's terrifying story. As King wrote his narrative, the Stanley's spooky ambience brought the Overlook to life. Reality and imagination are blended into a terrifying tapestry. The hotel's impact was significant in defining the novel's mood, a tribute to the importance of place in the chemistry of storytelling. What began as a brief stay became a horror fiction staple, permanently associating the Stanley Hotel with an iconic story of psychological horror and supernatural terror. Within the walls of the Stanley, the fragile boundary between reality and the horrors that fiction depicts becomes increasingly hazy, prompting one to wonder where one ends and the other begins. The historic legacy of the Stanley Hotel has an unbreakable connection with its founders, Freelance Stanley and his wife Flora. Flora Stanley, a distinguished pianist and socialite, added grace and cultural sophistication to the frontier, making the Stanley a symbol of high society and one of the most popular resorts in the area. Today, many guests report experiences with the Stanleys, implying that their spirits have chosen to remain in the precise area they adored in life. Freeland's apparition appears frequently in the billiards area, where he was known to enjoy leisurely games, and in the administration office, where he monitored the operation of his beloved hotel, as if to ensure that his expectations were met. These sightings are recorded with clarity that goes beyond simple ghostly whispering. Witnesses describe a refined gentleman, sometimes with a tender, welcoming grin, typical of Mr. Stanley's amiable personality. Flora's spiritual energy is strongest in the music room, where she spent most of her time enchanting guests with her piano performances. Visitors describe hearing eerie, but exquisite piano music playing on its own. The music, which is generally described as Flora's favorite pieces, begins when the room is empty, as if she is performing to an unseen audience. The keys have been seen moving on their own, an ethereal performance that leaves people who observe it in awe, accompanied by a faint shiver of thrill or fright. Flora and Stanley's appearances are more than simply tales. They are part of a larger story that the hotel embraces with these personal experiences, adding to the Stanley's historic and frightening draw. Each tale of their sightings, each note played on an empty piano, connects Stanley's evident history to the nebulous mystery of the afterlife. As tourists walk through the Stanley, the legends of its founders not only communicate a story, but also infuse life into the stone and woodwork of the Grand Hotel, ensuring that the legacy of the Stanleys remains as vivid and enduring as the structure they built. Among the many hauntings at the Stanley Hotel, the story of Room 217 stands out, inscribed into the fabric of its history with a mix of tragedy and everlasting intrigue. This room, where Stephen King notably used, is haunted by the ghost of Elizabeth Wilson, a servant who nearly escaped death in the early 20th century. During a stormy night in 1911, Elizabeth was injured by an explosion caused by a gas leak, while lighting the lanterns in room 217. The blast was powerful enough to propel her through the floor and into the dining room below. Surprisingly, she survived the trauma and suffered a broken ankle. Elizabeth, widely referred to as Mrs. Wilson, worked at the hotel for many years after her recovery, eventually passing away in the 1950s. Nevertheless, her spirit does not appear to have departed room 217. Guests who stay in this room claim a variety of strange occurrences, including lights flickering on and off, doors opening and closing suddenly, and possessions being unpacked unexpectedly. Some have even sensed a cold presence, implying that Miss Wilson's lingering ghost is still tending to her tasks, possibly concerned for the hotel's guests' safety. The legend of Elizabeth Wilson has long captivated those intrigued by the paranormal. Her story intertwined with the lore of the hotel itself. It was this very room, and its ghostly resident, that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. After he spent a restless night there, his imagination was fueled by the eerie energy of the room. Her presence in room 217 serves as a tragic reminder of the Stanleys' storied past, where each creak and whisper in the walls is a verse in the ongoing narrative of this historic hotel. The spectral presence in room 428 at the Stanley Hotel adds another unpleasant chapter to its haunted history. Many visitors have come to expect to see the ghost of a cowboy here. Room 428, positioned on the hotel's corner, is often described by tourists as having an unsettling atmosphere before the apparition emerges. Guests report a distinct sense of being watched, and others mention an unexpected chill or a sudden breeze that appears to come out of nowhere. Despite the fact that the room's windows are locked, this unusual cowboy figure is always portrayed as wearing a typical long coat and a Stetson hat that conceals his eyes. The cowboy's behavior is recognized as being more interactive than other spectral instances at the Stanley. While he usually starts by sitting quietly in the corner of the room, he will at times stand and position himself closer to the bed. Guests have experienced waking up to find him looming near, as if he wants to share something vital, but is unable to express his ideas. These exchanges, while never unsettling, leave visitors with a strong sense of unease and intrigue regarding his past. While specific details concerning the identity of the cowboy ghost in room 428 of the Stanley Hotel remain unknown, guest stories and enduring stories provide a rich atmosphere for his appearance. Cowboys and frontiersmen used to frequent the area around Estes Park, which now houses the Stanley Hotel, in the late 19th and early 20th century. It's likely that the cowboy represents the soul of one of these historical individuals, someone who had an attachment to the region before the hotel was built. Local legends indicate that he may have been involved in a fatal incident near the property, which could account for his restless, lingering apparition. This haunting not only adds to the Stanley Hotel's attraction as a destination for paranormal seekers, but it also provides a glimpse into the rich tapestry of local history and folklore. The recurring visits from the cowboy in room 428 serve as an unsettling reminder that the hotel, much like the surrounding Rocky Mountains, is steeped in tales of the past, some visible, others as shadowy as the ghosts who roam its halls. Each encounter with him adds another layer to the enigmatic charm that the Stanley Hotel embodies, bridging the gap between the historic Wild West and the contemporary experiences of its guests. Beyond the cowboy's haunting solitude in room 428, the Stanley Hotel's music hall holds its own gathering of spectral occupants, each with their own unique story that lends dimension to the hotel's haunted history. Among the most well-known ghosts are Paul, the hotel's former handyman, and Lucy, a woman who is thought to have found refuge in the concert hall after becoming homeless. Paul's presence in the music hall is characterized by a protective stance toward the space he previously occupied. Employees and customers recall hearing him say, "Get out," a word frequently murmured in the lower levels of the hall, particularly when staff are closing up for the night. This protective behavior is complemented by more benign interactions, such as flickering lights or shifting objects, acts that serve as a reminder to the living that he is always watching over the hall. Lucy's spirit, on the other hand, is frequently connected with a more lighthearted and perhaps sorrowful disposition. Her narrative is especially heartbreaking because she is thought to have been a young woman who was homeless. Lucy discovered the concert hall, which served as a temporary shelter, before being discovered and forced to face the bitter Colorado winter. Her presence is consistently acknowledged through cold spots, disembodied giggles, and startling manipulations of the performance hall's lighting systems. Guests and staff alike report experiencing a mix of melancholy and warmth, as if Lucy is mourning her fate, while yet expressing gratitude for the attention and respect she receives from the living. Paul and Lucy's continuous hauntings make the music hall a popular destination for paranormal investigations and tours. As visitors wander through the iconic concert hall, they might be in for an unexpected encounter with Paul and Lucy, whose spirited antics continue to enliven the old venue. Whether it's a sudden chill in the air hinting at Lucy's passing presence, or an unexplained sound echoing Paul's protective whispers, these spectral residents ensure that a stroll through the Stanley is anything but ordinary. From Paul and Lucy's comical and sad echoes in the performance hall, the atmosphere changes as we progress to room 401, where the presence of Lord Dan Raven, an English lord who previously owned much of the land on which the hotel now stands, imparts a distinctly different essence. Though Lord Dan Raven never resided in the Stanley, the hotel was constructed years after his departure from Estes Park. His attachment to the location is tangible. Known during his life for his ambitious land acquisitions and his somewhat controversial efforts to turn the area into a private hunting preserve, Dan Raven's legacy is as complex as the hauntings attributed to him. Guests and staff at the Stanley frequently report an array of mysterious phenomena, specifically in room 401, often associated with Lord Dan Raven's presence. The most distinctive sign is the strong scent of pipe tobacco, Dan Raven's preferred smoke during his lifetime, which inexplicably permeates the room despite a clear absence of any tangible source. Furthermore, visitors frequently report sensing an invisible presence, with some experiencing a sense of being attentively observed or even softly caressed, particularly by women, which may reflect Dan Raven's legendary affinity for the company of females during his lifetime. These encounters are sometimes accompanied by more visible disturbances, such as self-opening windows, sudden frigid drafts, or fluttering drapes in still air. On occasion, guests have reported hearing a disembodied voice, thought to be Dan Raven's, whispering incoherently, providing an audio aspect to the haunting. The unexplained occurrences in room 401 add to the lore surrounding the Stanley Hotel, highlighting a unique spectral narrative. The strange and dynamic phenomena experienced by guests, not just the scent of his tobacco or the mysterious movements of curtains, but also the less palpable feelings of a lingering presence, paint a vivid picture of a man whose earthly passions seem to have followed him into the afterlife. These encounters invite guests to reflect on the layers of history beneath their feet and the personalities that shaped them, preparing them to explore further into the legendary halls and rooms of the Stanley, where each shadow and whisper adds to the unfolding saga of this historic hotel. As we move along to the fourth floor of the Stanley Hotel, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. Once the servants' quarters, this area retains the echoes of its past, not through visible remnants, but through the audible traces of invisible inhabitants. Especially in room 418, guests report hearing the sounds of children playing, a giggling chorus that fills the hallways when no child is visible. The fourth floor's reputation for these ghostly occurrences is extensively documented by both workers and guests. The sounds of laughter and running feet are frequently heard in the darkest hours of night, when the corridors are vacant and the living guests are asleep. These are not just fleeting noises. Many report them as vividly resonant, as real as any live sounds, yet with no discernible source. Some paranormal enthusiasts believe that these noises are examples of the stone tape phenomenon, in which emotions or experiences are imprinted on the surroundings and replayed under specific conditions. According to this notion, the young energy and emotions of previous servants' children have been recorded by the building's framework and are being replayed for today's ears, Because of the Stanley's remote location, many staff members used to live on site, and their children would play in these corridors, their laughter permeating the walls and maybe leaving a permanent imprint on the building's composition. With each stride down this historic hallway, the line between past and present seems to dissolve, encouraging visitors to not only listen, but also experience the lively history that whispers from the walls. These echoes guide us. They pave a path for deeper studies into Stanley's unseen and unheard stories, with each turn revealing a new puzzle to solve. From the echoes of children's laughter on the fourth floor, our journey through the Stanley Hotel leads us to one of its most visually remarkable features, the Grand Staircase. Among the magnificent woodwork and regal ambience, a separate spectral dweller is supposed to remain, known as the Staircase Phantom. This ghostly apparition has been documented not just in stories, but also in several photographs taken by both guests and paranormal investigators. The Staircase Phantom generally appears as a faint, ethereal form that emerges on the staircase, usually late at night or early in the morning. Some visitors report seeing a fleeting shadow or a foggy shape, while others have captured more definite photographs of what looks to be an aristocratic figure dressed in historical attire, alluding to the hotel's long and illustrious history. These ghostly sightings on the staircase have piqued the imagination of paranormal enthusiasts and skeptics alike, attracting visitors to this architectural landmark in the hopes of collecting their own evidence of the Stanley's hauntings. The allure of this particular phantom is enhanced by its seeming preference for dramatic appearances, often when the grandeur of the staircase is bathed in the soft glow of the chandelier overhead, creating a perfect backdrop for such an enigmatic presence. The Staircase Phantom's origins are unknown. However, some speculate that it could be one of the hotel's numerous prior guests or residents, perhaps even one of the Stanley family members. Whoever it is, the presence of this phantom lends a captivating dimension to the hotel's aura, prompting everyone who visits to look a little longer and closer at the surroundings, imagining who may have ascended these steps in a distant period. Leaving the serious mystery of the Grand Staircase and its specter behind, we come across a lighter, more playful haunting within the Stanley Hotel's walls. In the pet-friendly rooms, patrons have reported seeing a ghostly cat, adding an unexpectedly pleasant aspect to the hotel's collection of ghosts. This ethereal feline, frequently described as a little gray figure, is observed sauntering about rooms or hopping upon beds with the ghostly elegance that only cats have. The stories about this ghostly companion are both intriguing and endearing to guests, many of whom have felt the cat snuggle up at the foot of their beds. The experience is so vivid that when they reach out to pet it, they only find emptiness. Others have reported hearing faint purring sounds or the soft padding of paws across the carpet in the middle of the night. This feline apparition is thought to be a previous resident pet lingering in its once loved home. The hotel, with its long-standing policy of embracing pets, appears to have provided not only a brief respite for its human visitors, but also a permanent home for at least one of its more elusive creatures. This adds a layer of comfort to the hotel's environment, implying that the Stanley offers a place of peace and calm, not just to its human visitors, but to creatures of all kinds. The appearance of this ghostly cat serves as a reminder that not all spirits should be feared. Some, like our feline companion, appear to blend into the fabric of daily life at the hotel, providing a gentle reminder of the warmth and liveliness that once inhabited these rooms. We move on from the mild signs of a phantom feline's presence to a more lively part of the Stanley Hotel, the Old Bar. The story of the cheeky bartender lends a light-hearted element to the hotel's eerie repertoire. This former bartender, whose identity is a mystery, does not appear to have really retired. According to both staff and guests, the ghost still resides in the bar, where glassware and bottles move on their own, particularly when the bar is quiet and the air is laden with the past. The phenomenon is most visible when the bar is closed to the public, with personnel reporting the sound of clinking glassware and bottles slowly sliding on the shelves. On occasion, the ice scoop moves by itself, scooping ice into glasses that have been placed out for cleaning, as if preparing for a ghostly evening of cocktails. These activities are accented by the occasional strange odor of liquor or tobacco smoke, as if the bartender were just out of sight, taking a brief break. The whimsical character of these hauntings adds a light-hearted tone to the spectral happenings at the Stanley. Unlike other of the hotel's more terrifying stories, the tale of the mischievous bartender appears to elicit curiosity and interest rather than fear. The lively ambience of the historical bar, where echoes of laughing and chatter seem to be mere moments away, emphasizes the Stanley Hotel's whimsical side. Unlike the hotel's more scary stories, the tale of the mischievous bartender elicits entertainment and a sense of nostalgia. This spirit, who appears to enjoy his former occupation, serves as a reminder that not all who linger are motivated by unrest or tragedy. The continuous antics of this spectral bartender not only brighten up the old bar, but they also urge customers to reflect on the joy that once filled this space. Our voyage through the Stanley Hotel's supernatural landscape has led us to room 302, which is located in the hotel's older wing. Here, the haunting takes on a more subtle, yet extremely unnerving form, with the Whispering Woman, whose presence is marked not by bold apparitions, but by soft, elusive whispers that drift through the room at night. Guests who stay in room 302 often report a disturbing experience. As the lights dim and the stillness of the night increases, whispers begin to enter the room, mild and almost calming, but impossible to entirely take in or comprehend. These whispers hover on the verge of audibility, sometimes sounding as if they are whispering secrets that the listener cannot understand. The origin of these murmurs remains unknown, with no clear background or history to explain who this woman is or why her voice is engraved in the room's fabric. The unsettling character of these whispers frequently makes guests feel as if they are not alone, that they share the space with an unseen resident who talks in low tones. This sense is especially strong in the tranquil hours before morning, producing an environment that is both eerie and unsettling. The Whispering Woman of room 302 adds a deeply psychological layer to the Stanley's hauntings, asking visitors to pay closer attention and possibly understand the words spoken quietly. Leaving room 302 and its occupant behind, whispers seem to be echoing in our minds, a constant reminder that the Stanley Hotel transmits its history through both shrieks and murmurs. Each story discovered throughout our exploration adds to a complex narrative, mixing the visible with the obscured and encouraging us to pay closer attention to the quiet voices of history that echo throughout this famous establishment. Moving on from the haunting whispers of room 302, we look at the Stanley Hotel's astute use of its spectral prominence in pop culture and tourism. As the tale of the hotel's haunting spread, aided by its link with Stephen King's The Shining, management recognized and profited on its ghostly reputation by creating themed tours that piqued the interest of paranormal investigators and horror enthusiasts alike. These tours take guests through the hotel's most haunted locations, telling tales of previous sightings and unexplained incidents that have been reported throughout the years. Each tour is steeped in the lore of the hotel's various spirits, which range from amusing to terrifying, making the Stanley a destination for individuals seeking ghostly phenomena. In 2015, the hotel erected a hedge maze, reminiscent of the renowned labyrinth in the Shining film adaptation. Though not a part of King's original novel, the maze has become a symbol connected with the narrative as a result of its appearance in the film. The maze at the Stanley Hotel provides guests with a fully immersive experience, allowing them to meander through its pathways while perhaps half expecting to turn a corner and come face to face with their own eerie experience. These attractions not only add to the hotel's haunted credibility, but also help to define its modern character as a cultural landmark. They fill the gap between the Stanley's historical importance as a luxury hotel and its current standing as a sanctuary for ghost stories and gothic allure. This fusion of the paranormal and pop culture ensures that the Stanley Hotel remains a captivating destination for people from all over the world anxious to explore its hallways and possibly catch a glimpse of something paranormal. The Stanley Hotel has established its place in popular culture by capitalizing on its status as a hotspot for paranormal enthusiasts and film history. The hotel's appeal extends beyond the physical realm to the world of media, where it has appeared in various television shows, documentaries, and films celebrating the supernatural. Particularly, the Stanley has been featured in series such as Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, where paranormal investigators strive to unearth the mysteries hidden within its walls, attracting audiences all over the world. Furthermore, the Stanley Hotel's link to Stephen King has attracted literary fans from all over the world. The hotel that inspired The Shining has become a pilgrimage spot for admirers of King's work, anxious to experience the spooky atmosphere that spurred one of his most renowned books. This literary connection has enhanced the hotel's narrative, adding a degree of literary depth to its eerie reputation. Throughout the year, the Stanley conducts a number of activities to pay tribute to its scary legacy and literary significance, such as murder mystery dinners, horror film events, and a Stephen King tour that visits specific areas associated with King's stay and later writings. These activities not only celebrate the hotel's history, but also expand its cultural imprint, keeping the Stanley current in the public consciousness as a site where the lines between truth and fiction are mysteriously blurred. The Stanley Hotel continues to inspire terror, fascination, and artistic expression, demonstrating how deeply a single site can affect society and entertainment. Its walls not only house echoes of the past, but they also inspire engaging stories, cementing the Stanley's place as a renowned symbol in both the paranormal and literary realms. In the eerie halls of the Stanley Hotel, where the lines between time and reality fade, a tradition of hauntings and lore has been forged by both true events and manufactured myths. The hotel's history includes true ghost stories, such as Flora Stanley and the Whispering Woman in Room 302, as well as fictitious horror stories inspired by Stephen King's vivid imagination. This combination has turned the Stanley into more than just a ghostly refuge. It has become an infamous paranormal site, with each creak and whisper adding to its allure as one of America's most haunted locations. Reflecting on the Stanley's enduring magnetism, its continued appeal is easy to understand. As the sun sets below the Rocky Mountains, it casts long shadows on its distinctive facade. The hotel appears to whisper invitations to those who wish to discover its enigmatic secrets. The faint sounds of a piano echoing through its halls, or the soft, spooky giggles of ghostly children playing on the fourth level, act as an eerie call for the curious and daring. The Stanley Hotel survives not only in Estes Park, but in the hearts of anyone who has passed through its haunting chambers, inspired by its spooky grandeur and the stories that fill its walls. As we fade out on the Stanley's creepy countenance at sunset, with ghostly voices and distant piano music echoing in the air, we are reminded that certain places hold more than just memories. They have a presence, an energy all on their own, created from the stories of people who have walked through their doors, both living and deceased. The Stanley Hotel remains a captivating beacon beckoning to those drawn to the liminal space between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, the past and present. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and stay until the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and share your experiences in the comments section below. And if you're new here, welcome. Be sure to hit the bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. All these things truly help me out in the algorithm and help build this spooky community. And if you like creepy places, check out my video on 13 of the most haunted locations.